The International Hotel, Las Vegas, November 1969, 3 in the morning, and the casino floor was still buzzing with the sounds of slot machines and desperate gamblers. But up on the 30th floor, in a private lounge reserved for headliners, two of the biggest names in entertainment history sat alone at the bar. Dean Martin had just finished his midnight show. Elvis Presley was in the middle of his comeback residency, performing 2 shows a night to sold-out crowds. They knew each other the way legends do. Respectful nods backstage, brief conversations at industry events, but never close. Never real friends. They existed in the same world but traveled different orbits. Elvis Presley and Dean Martin got drunk together one night. What Elvis confessed changed Dean forever. Tonight was different. Dean walked into the empty lounge, looking for a quiet drink before heading home. Elvis was already there, sitting at the far end of the bar, a half-empty bottle of Jack Daniels in front of him. No entourage, no Memphis Mafia, no Priscilla. Just Elvis, alone with his thoughts and his demons. "Rough night?" Dean asked, lighting a cigarette. Dean almost turned around. He could tell Elvis wanted to be alone, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Elvis was hunched over his glass. Maybe it was the fact that the king of rock and roll looked more like a lost kid than a superstar. Whatever it was, Dean walked over and sat down 2 stools away. Elvis looked up, startled. For a second, Dean saw something flash across his face. Embarrassment maybe, or relief. "Dean Martin, didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect to see you without your army of guys surrounding you." Elvis smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Gave them the night off. Needed to think. "Yours is better. You're on fire this run. Like the old days. Your show was good tonight," Elvis said finally, caught the end of it from the wings. Dean gestured to the bartender for a glass and poured himself a drink from his own bottle of scotch. They sat in silence for a moment, 2 men at the top of the world, drinking alone at 3 in the morning. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Dean took a drink. He knew that tone, that wariness. He'd heard it in his own voice more times than he could count. Simple is overrated anyway, is it? Elvis turned to look at Dean directly. His eyes were bloodshot, not just from drinking, from crying, because right now I'd give anything to go back to simple, back to when I was just some kid from Memphis who could sing a little and shake his hips, before all this became whatever this is. Elvis laughed, but there was no joy in it. The old days, when everything was simple, when all I had to worry about was whether the girls would scream loud enough. Dean studied him. Elvis was 34 years old. Should have been in his prime, but he looked older, tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. "What's eating you, Elvis?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't even know anymore." Elvis poured himself another drink with shaking hands. "You ever feel like you're drowning, Dean? Like you're surrounded by people but completely alone? Like everyone wants a piece of you but nobody actually sees you?" Dean didn't answer immediately. He took a long drag of his cigarette and let the question hang in the air. "Every single day. That's the thing about making it look easy, kid. It's work. Exhausting work. And yeah, I feel alone all the time." You think those 2,000 people screaming your name care about who you really are? They care about who they think you are, who they need you to be. Elvis looked surprised. "Really? You, Mr. Cool? The guy who makes it all look easy?" "Exactly." Elvis's voice cracked. "Exactly. I can't be myself anywhere. Can't go to a movie, can't go to a restaurant, can't take a walk. I'm trapped in this life I built, and I can't find a way out. And the worst part? Everyone thinks I'm living the dream. No. Elvis's eyes filled with tears. I'm living a nightmare, Dean. I wake up every morning and I have to be Elvis Presley. I have to smile and perform and be what everyone expects. And I don't know who that is anymore. I don't know if I ever did. Aren't you? Dean poured them both another drink. So who are you when you're not Elvis Presley? Is it? Because I can't find it. I look in the mirror and I see Elvis Presley, the hair, the jumpsuit, the persona, but I don't see me, and I'm starting to think there is no me, that I sold him a long time ago for fame and money, and screaming crowds. You were a kid once. A kid who loved music. That's still in there somewhere. Elvis wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I don't know, that's what scares me. I've been Elvis Presley for so long, I can't remember who I was before. Was I ever just a person, or was I always this thing everyone wants me to be? Dean leaned back in his chair. Can I tell you something, Elvis? Something I've never told anyone. Elvis nodded. I hate performing sometimes. Really hate it. There are nights where I walk on stage, and all I want to do is run, because I know that for the next 90 minutes, I have to be Dean Martin, the drunk, the ladies' man, the guy who doesn't have a care in the world. And that's not me. That's a character I created to survive. But everyone expects it, so I deliver. Elvis was staring at him now, fully engaged. How do you deal with it? I separate it. Dean Martin is my job. Dino Crosetti is who I am. Dean Martin performs. Dino Crosetti goes home, takes off the tux, and tries to remember what it feels like to be human. Some days it works. Some days it doesn't. I can't separate it anymore. Elvis whispered. Elvis Presley is everywhere. He's in my marriage. He's in my home. He's in my head. I can't escape him. Fire Elvis Presley. Take a break. Cancel some shows. Go somewhere nobody knows you. Remember what it feels like to just be a person. Not a brand. Not an icon. A person. Then maybe you need to fire him. Elvis looked confused. What? I can't do that. The Colonel would kill me. I've got contracts, obligations, people depending on me. Elvis was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes I think about just ending it. Just stopping. All of it. Dean stubbed out his cigarette. And what happens when you break? When the pressure gets so heavy, you can't carry it anymore. Who's gonna perform then? Elvis didn't answer directly. I'm just so tired, Dean. So tired of being this thing everyone needs me to be. And I don't see a way out that doesn't disappoint everyone. Dean set down his drink and looked Elvis in the eye. Listen to me very carefully. The way out isn't permanent. You hear me? The way out is taking control, saying no, protecting yourself, building a life that's yours, not theirs. The words hung in the air like a bomb nobody wanted to defuse. Dean felt his chest tighten. Stopping how? I don't know how to do that. Then learn. Get help. Talk to someone who isn't on your payroll. Find people who care about Elvis the person, not Elvis the product. And most importantly, stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to make everyone happy. You can't. It's impossible. And killing yourself trying isn't noble. It's just sad. Elvis wiped his eyes again. How'd you get so smart? I don't know if I can do what you're saying. You can. You just have to want to. And you have to be brave enough to disappoint some people in the short term to save yourself in the long term. I'm not smart. I'm just older. And I've watched too many people in this business destroy themselves trying to be what everyone else wants. Don't be another one, Elvis. You're too talented, too important. The world needs you. But it needs you alive and healthy, not burning yourself out trying to be superhuman. They sat in silence for a while. The bottle between them was nearly empty. The sun would be up in a few hours. Elvis looked exhausted, but somehow lighter, like he'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down, even if just for a moment. We're all fighting the same fight, kid. Some of us are just better at hiding it. Thank you, Elvis said quietly. For not judging me, for understanding. Elvis stood up, a little unsteady. I should go. Got a show in 12 hours. You gonna be okay? Elvis paused. I don't know, but I feel a little less alone than I did an hour ago. That counts for something. They shook hands. Elvis held on a little longer than necessary. If I ever need to talk again, you know where to find me. Elvis left. Dean sat at the bar for another hour, thinking about the conversation, about the pain in Elvis's eyes, about the weight of fame that crushes people from the inside out. He made a mental note to check in on Elvis, to make sure he was okay, to maybe grab another drink and talk again, but he never did. Life got busy. Shows, filming, family drama. Dean kept meaning to call, kept meaning to reach out. But weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Dean's stomach dropped. What about him? August 16th, 1977. Dean was at home when the phone rang. Frank Sinatra on the other line. You heard about Elvis? He's dead, Dino. They found him this afternoon. Heart attack. He was 42 years old. That conversation in 1969. Elvis had reached out, had shown Dean his pain, had practically begged for help, without saying the words directly, and Dean had listened, had given advice, but then he'd gone back to his own life and forgotten to follow up. Dean hung up the phone and just sat there, numb, devastated, and consumed by a single thought that would haunt him for the rest of his life. I should have called. At Elvis's funeral, Dean couldn't speak, couldn't perform. He just stood in the back, watching them bury a 42-year-old man who'd been drowning for years while the world watched and did nothing. Frank put his hand on Dean's shoulder. You can't save everyone, Dino, even when you try. Later, Dean told Frank about that night, about what Elvis had said, about the darkness Dean had seen in his eyes. I should have done more, Francis. I should have checked on him. I should have been there. The guilt never fully left Dean. In interviews years later, if anyone mentioned Elvis, Dean would get quiet, reflective. Elvis was a good kid, he'd say, talented beyond measure, and crushed by the weight of his own success. We all saw it happening, and we all just kept performing. But I didn't try. That's the point. He told me he was drowning, and I threw him advice instead of a lifeline, and now he's gone. The lesson here isn't subtle. We all know people who are struggling, who put on a brave face, who perform their happiness while dying inside. And it's easy to have one good conversation, give some advice, and think we've done our part. But checking in matters, following up matters, being present over time, not just in one moment, matters. Elvis Presley died alone in his bathroom, surrounded by people but isolated from real human connection. Dean Martin lived with the knowledge that he'd seen the warning signs and hadn't acted on them. Dean gave Elvis good advice that night in 1969. But advice isn't the same as support. Words aren't the same as presence. And one conversation, no matter how deep, isn't enough to save someone who's drowning. 8 years later, one of them was dead, and the other spent the rest of his life wishing he'd made one phone call, one check-in, one moment of, "Hey, How are you really doing? The tragedy isn't that Elvis confessed his pain. The tragedy is that Dean listened, understood, and then walked away. We all do it. We hear someone's pain. We sympathize, we give advice. And then we go back to our own lives and forget to check if they're okay. That night, in November 1969, two legends sat at a bar and shared their darkest fears. One asked for help, without asking. One offered wisdom without following through. That's not a story about failure. It's a reminder. Check on your friends. Check on the people who seem fine. Check on the ones who are performing their happiness, because sometimes the people who need help the most are the best at pretending they don't. And sometimes one conversation isn't enough. Sometimes saving someone means showing up again, and again, and again. Elvis told Dean he was drowning. Dean told him how to swim, but he never threw him a rope.